3, 2, 1. Hey.
Wisecrackers.
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 Wisecrackers. Starting now.
Hi, I'm Patrick Rush, and I'm joined by Alec Nava, Daniel Sprague, Frito, the Honorable Cap No Cap, and Mibbs. 8 teams in NFL history have gone back-to-back winning Super Bowls. The Kansas City Chiefs are the 9th. All 8 teams before them to win back-to-back Super Bowls have never three-peated. Will Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and this incarnation of the Chiefs be the first team to ever three-peat? I honestly believe there's so much parity in the NFL that I would undoubtedly take the field over the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl this upcoming season. However, you can never rule out Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I guess I got to be the guy to just rebuttal and cut people off and tell them I believe that you're wrong. But
It's good content. Go for
Already
I
off
love-
the bat, we're going like this.
I love that the NFL season has concluded, and not even 30 days later, we're back talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs just released MVS for about $12 million, freeing up space for the opportunity to pick up a star wideout. And that brings into question, are the Chiefs going to really be capable of being the first ever team to three-peat in the Super Bowl era? And I'm going to tell you, I believe so. Not only because of the script and having probably the best coaching in the league currently, but the possibility of a star wideout going to Kansas City would damn near put a foregone conclusion that the Chiefs will be back in the Super Bowl next season. I just personally feel like this year, this was the Ravens' chance to showcase Mahomes is able to be beat. Because if you look at that roster from top to bottom, I mean, on the defensive side, they had a lot of really, really good young talent. Chris Jones, the name one off the top of my head. And their defense definitely won them a lot of games, especially that game against the Ravens where Mahomes had probably the worst half of his career. Didn't do jack shit for the entire game, but they still somehow was able to win that game 17-10, keeping one of the top offenses in the league from being able to score on multiple occasions, forcing 2 fumbles, and then Mahomes just goes into the Super Bowl and just does what Mahomes does, bro. Like the entire game, you were watching this game just knowing like Mahomes is gonna do some crazy shit because he's sitting there calm as a cucumber, down by 10. And they could have been down by 17 if it wasn't for Christian McCaffrey fumbling the ball. And that is a really big hole to be in any Super Bowl, unless your name is Tom Brady. But now you look at a situation where there's a possibility the Kansas City Chiefs could get, I hope to God, not a Justin Jefferson who's up for trades now, a Mike Evans who's going to be looking into free agency, and then a plethora of other guys I can't think of right now. But even if they was to get somebody like Sterling Shepard, the top receiver on my shitty New York Giants team, that puts them in a different place because last year their top receiver was Mecole Hardman and MVS. Those guys are not top guys. And this man just won the Super Bowl quite easily, if you ask me.
I think pass isn't prologue, though. And just because they won it in their quote-unquote down year, there's still some teams out there that could give them hell. Say Buffalo retools. You see the Dolphins retool a pissed-off Ravens team. You could see some teams try to take a shot at that crown, and I think some of them could be successful. Closest team to ever actually three-peat was a friend of ours who's not here, it's 49ers team. The closest they made it in their three-peat attempt was to the NFC Championship game, which is still respectable, but it just goes to show you how hard it is. And every year in the NFL, there's about 3 to 4 teams that make the playoffs one year that don't make it the next. Because there's so much parity, there's injuries, there's teams like you saw, like you said at the Vikings, that maybe would have been a playoff contender if healthy, but without a Justin Jefferson or kind of SOL. I can see where you're coming from, and it's really hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes, but I'd definitely take the field.
It's really easy to bet against Patrick Mahomes.
He's a very
go on, man.
delightful guy.
Cook.
Me personally, I think that there's a realistic chance, though I'm not going to count out the field per se, because there are other teams that can challenge them. The one that was closest to taking him down was Buffalo, if we're being honest. But I'm going to take a show me approach with the field, and they're going to have to what it takes. Yeah, they just let go of MVS, saved up $12 million to your point, Cap. But also, with Rashee Rice being the best wideout on the team, they can build on that and then get someone else, whether it be for the draft or free agency, say Mike Evans or Devontae Walker in free agency and or the draft respectively. But there's no clear-cut answer who is easier to keep between Chris Jones or Jerry Sneed. But I feel Brett Veach, with his wizardry at the front office, he can find a way to keep both, considering he's one of the best general managers in the league. Not to mention that Steve Spagnuolo is perhaps the best defensive coordinator in the league and can help develop defenses and have them play up to their fullest potential. See, Snead has developed into a lockdown corner under Spagnuolo, and he's allowed just one touchdown all season, regular season and playoffs combined, and that was on an improbable catch by Khalil Shakir by Buffalo. So the Chiefs, they're definitely going to have a case for repeating, but there are going to be teams that are going to try to dethrone them, like Buffalo, Baltimore, Cincinnati with Joe Burrow.
Yep, that's the one I missed. Cincinnati, which, if we recall, is the team that in the AFC has taken down the Chiefs head-to-head.
And I also want to say that was also a nice call, Alec, on Rice. He totally slipped my mind. He was definitely a big-time difference maker when it came to Kansas City season this year. Like, he came out of the cut. I think he was a rookie this year, if I'm not mistaken, or a 2 year. Yeah, so like having him come in there, and just like how Pacheco came in the year before, like these young guys have come into Kansas City and really made a difference, really put emphasis on that team where we thought was dead in the water once Tyreek Hill had went off the Dolphins.
Miami. I mean,
go ahead,
the Jaguars' effect with Christian Kirk can be attributed to that.
So we don't want to throw in the Dallas Cowboys as the favorites, Daniel?
Absolutely not.
That was not necessary.
That was not my bingo card.
Not necessary. It was not necessary.
I mean that would be nasty work, in the words of Cap.
Very nasty.
Maybe I'd start believing the script.
Yeah, I was gonna say my take on the whole can the Chiefs three-peat. It's like a mix. I agree with both Cap and Pat. It's weird. I'd rather take the field, but at the same time, like Cap said, Rashee Rice was their best receiver, and he was only a rookie. Travis Kelce is still on the team, even though he probably won't be as probably well off during the regular season. He's kind of regressed a little bit, but as you saw in the postseason, that did not matter. He's still Travis Kelce. So with that being said, if they either draft a wide receiver, or if they sign one in free agency, I think it'll just help elevate that offense, because there are times where during the regular season, I was just like, man, the whole reason why the Kansas City Chiefs are contenders is because of their defense. Because you just saw every week Pat Mahomes just kept not doing Pat Mahomes things. But then once the postseason started, it's like none of that even mattered. It's almost like they're in the realm of like they just need to get to the playoffs. And if you pick against them, you kind of look dumb. But at the same time, the Cincinnati Bengals have shown with the healthy Joe Burrow. They just franchised T. Higgins. So him and Jamar Chase healthy. Whoever wins that will be, whoever wins the shootout between those two teams. So I'd rather take the field, but at the same time, like Cap said, don't let them get an actual really, really good receiver.
I think, too, hypothetically, to make the Super Bowl again, right? And to go against 49ers team that improved enough.
Right, the 49ers.
They might have some, axes to grind, in that potential rematch. There's other teams, so I could see, like, the difficulty with this for me is, like, and I almost considered it like, if they did, like, this would be the team to do it. This team with this preternatural quarterback and tight end, pretty much wide receiver, and Kelce.
Excellent coaching, too, like Cap said. Like,
and Reed. Reed is a great
I was
going
to bring up one more thing, Pat.
The best coach in the league.
Yeah.
Behind Dan Campbell, I agree, yeah. Let's go. I'm just kidding.
During that Super Bowl, like Cap said, that McCaffrey fumble, not only that, they capitalized, they didn't capitalize off of that immediately, but like the muffed punt, the Chiefs are somehow able to take advantage of every coaching mistake, every special teams mistake. Like I said, I feel like that's just a product of their coaching. They're able to capitalize on other teams' mistakes. Whereas multi-talented teams every year, like the Dallas Cowboys, that's where their coaching lacks. Talent clearly can't take you all the way if the coaching isn't there.
Well, looking at Richie's face, I don't know if he agrees. Is he frozen on anyone else's?
I think he's just dumbfounded. I
feel he's just.
I've been
he's
keeping
just
Richie's
frozen
face
after
changing.
you mentioned the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I've been peeping Richie's face changing, like, and it just gets frozen in like the perfect.
Every time Cowboys are
It's
mentioned.
perfect timing, Cap. Indeed,
screenshots, all right.
And Daniel, that goes to show.
I thought about it.
Even if you have as much talent on a roster, you need to have the coaching to back it up, and that's the importance of guys like Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Dan Campbell, for that matter, too.
I feel like that's a good segue. I ain't gonna lie. I feel like this is the perfect segue to go into the report card.
I think
City.
I have something to say about Dan Campbell.
Oh, no, go ahead.
This is a very hot take because he's Literally took them out of the mud and the dirt.
You mean hell?
3-14. I thought those were similar things, but that's fine. 3-14 seasons, just whatever seasons, right? Just
0-16.
Pat has seen it all. And the fact that they won their division, went all the way to NFC Championship is an accomplishment in of itself. And I'm not disputing any of that. With that being said, the amount of times where this man went for it on 4th down when he didn't have to. They were up by 3 and they went for it, didn't get it. It's like, okay, whatever. They go down. I feel like if you're in a deficit, if you're down by 3 and you're in a playoff game. Now, granted, I didn't know this till after that game. I didn't know Michael Badgley wasn't the best field goal kicker. I didn't know that, so that's important context. I feel like the Lions had a competent field goal kicker. He'd be more confident to kick the field goal. That being said, I hope Dan Campbell's decisions next year do not come back to bite him in the kneecaps. It's important to go aggressive on 4th down. I understand that. But at the same time, you don't have to do it all the time. And I hope, like I said, that doesn't come back to bite him. That's the only thing I'll say about Dan Campbell.
Speaking about the Lions, if they actually get the weapons they need on defense, like that could be another tough team for the Chiefs because of how they match up on offense. But on defense, the Chiefs are superior.
I just want to say quickly, it's very cathartic that a Dallas Cowboys fan is speaking on Dan Campbell and his 4th quarter woes when the game of the century, when it comes to fucking up, has to go to
coaches.
The Lions, has to go to the referees. Oh, Lord have mercy, bro. That game was crazy, bro. Detroit
versus
when
Dallas?
Detroit goes and scores a touchdown with like 3 seconds left in the game, and instead of just kicking the field goal, which still will win you the game, he goes for it on 3. He goes for it on 2. The first time they scored, but then they gonna throw a flag out there and said like illegal man downfield. I'm like, bro, that is bullshit.
When Taylor
which game are you talking
clearly
about?
reported
Which
eligible.
game? Are you talking about Decker? Decker was eligible. He reported to the ref. The ref kind of looked at him and shrugged. And the Lions should have had the second.
I feel Brad Allen misjudged on who was eligible and said Dan Skipper 70 instead of Decker 68.
Mind you, they go for it again and they throw another flag.
The Cowboys fall off
another
sides.
flag.
Yeah, and then they go for it a 3rd time, and that's when I was thinking like, I feel like at this point you should tie it and go to overtime. Yeah, but then Dan Campbell after the game was like, hey, I told him like we're gonna score a touchdown and go for 2, no matter if it's from the 7-yard line or the 10-yard line. Like we're gonna try to win this, and Cowboys dodged a bullet there for sure. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, at least we had the ball don't lie, ultimate ball don't lie moment in wildcard weekend.
Ooh. All right, I think that's a good transition to our next topic, unless any of you esteemed gentlemen have something you want to add to this.
We can move on.
Let's move on from this point. Let's go on to report cards.
Let's go ahead to report cards.
And bottom 3 NFL PA report cards. Every year, the NFL Players Association releases an internal player survey. Each player votes on what team they are on a myriad of different criteria. We'll be discussing the top 5 grade earners, which respectfully are: number 1, highest marks, Miami Dolphins. Number 2, second highest marks, the Minnesota Vikings. Third highest marks, yuck, the Green Bay Packers. Number 4, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Boo.
Sure.
Ooh.
Number 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we'll also be discussing the bottom 3 grade earners, which are 32 second team, aka the worst, Washington Commanders.
Of course they are.
Number 2, 31st team, aka second worst, surprise, Kansas City Chiefs.
Crazy.
Number 3, 30th team, aka the third worst, Los Angeles Chargers.
Not a surprise.
Not surprised at all. But
I want to go first. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say this has to be the weirdest report card I've ever seen. Like, it is so strange. Everything is out of order. And I guess to bridge the gap between what we just talked about and this segment right here, the Kansas City Chiefs are 31st in nutrition, 31st in the weight room, 32nd in training staff, they're last. 23rd in the weight room, 27th in coaching. The only thing that they're good in is A+ in head coach. And 32nd in ownership, F-. Things that stick out to me overall in terms of like ad report cards is ownership, not just in the Chiefs, and treatment of families. D plus for the Chiefs. D plus for the Tennessee Titans. F minus for the Commanders. F minus for the Patriots. Treatment of families. And I mean, the only thing that I can really say overall good is the Miami Dolphins. They have a near perfect report card. But even
and I love that for them. But they
No.
can't get it done on the field, so it's clear as day that these report cards clearly don't matter.
The players' union does this. So first of all, it puts some pressure on ownership because they could be like, well, you're gonna treat our families like shit. Okay, fine. I'm gonna sign someplace else in free agency. We have it right here in a survey, and it puts pressure on ownership to make the changes necessary to make your work environment for your team better. Because yes, owners are gonna make money hand over fist with the media deals and all of that, but are they gonna do what it takes to make it a good workplace for their players? As we can see, even the defending champs haven't done that in a lot of criterion. So
That's true. But
it
here's an-
incentivizes better ownership, I think. And it also gives you a cheat sheet on where you can maybe sign free agency that aligns with your values.
There's also another thing that we need to talk about just really quick. I don't think this is as drastic as treatment of families because I think, number one, that's the biggest issue. Like, you have to treat players like you have to have a daycare, you have to have a family room after games. Like that's an absolute necessity.
Do
like,
you really? Because look at two of the three teams that are at the bottom of treatment of families: the New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Two teams that have had a standard of excellence for the last 20 to 25 years. Do treatment of families really matter when you were getting these players to the point that they need to get to be the best that they can be on this football field?
But using a different sport, since we just got out of NBA, it can be a bad thing. Tim Duncan could have went to the Magic had Doc Rivers allowed his wife on the plane.
That's true.
Treatment of families is important.
Tim Duncan, but hear me out real quick. Tim Duncan would not be a 5-time NBA champion if he went to the Magic.
Yeah, but that's just the point. The point is these overarching these criterions, matter. I mean,
you're referring to basically like a Tim Duncan or a Jokic type who's like, I don't care how many I win, like as long as I'm winning and like in general and I'm living the best life I can.
It's just this big surprise about treatment of families, and you look at the bottom, you find teams like the Steelers, Patriots, and Chiefs who have strings of success about that. But and speaking of owners, the one thing that stands about owners is Clark Hunt being dead last on the list among the owners when he hasn't done anything as bad as what guys like David Tepper, Stan Kroenke, Jimmy Haslam, or Shad Khan have done. Because when you look at Tepper, every year after he bought the Panthers, they got worse and worse. He's basically not learned anything from when he had a minority share of the Steelers. And if he did learn anything, it wasn't about franchise stability at all because he's meddling in the interests of the team and is very impatient of his ways to where he's throwing temper tantrums or, dare I say it, Tepper tantrums. Throw drinks and failed practice facilities included.
There's not enough context provided when reading these report cards, right? None of these exist in isolation. When you think about all of these coaching and GM changes, particularly head coach, offensive coordinator, and general manager of all these franchises, we've heard the same comments over the past 2, 3, 4 years of people being out of touch with player needs. And these players not responding to leadership like they have in the past. Now, who are some of the most egregious examples of that? It's the New England Patriots, right? The New England Patriots talking about being entrenched in a way that doesn't keep up with the current roster. But you also have to keep inside just some raw demographic differences. How young are these players? How old are these players? What are the family needs?
That makes a lot of sense. I ain't gonna lie.
What exactly are the family needs? When Pittsburgh has one of the youngest offenses in the league. Same thing with New England. It's saying these are not people who are coming with multiple kids or spousal histories or, they haven't bought their first home, blase, 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 blase. All of that comes into it. I'm not excusing any of it. Teams need to be able to adjust. But it's not just dead in the water. Same thing with ownership. The Steelers are notorious. Art Rooney is not chatting with players. Never will. That's not his MO. So when you're getting a ranking of F, Bob Kraft is not chatting with his players. It's an F because they have no relationship.
Miscommunication.
I think some of this stuff does have some context if you do some of the research. Like, for example, well, you're right in the vacuum, Mavs. I completely agree with you. Like, for example, the Chargers, right? I did some research when I was behind the grades. The Los Angeles Rams and the Chargers, we all know, share SoFi. Close to the Rams, they actually have a daycare for your children. I don't think the Rams players have to pay for it. The Chargers do not. And you would think it'd be in the same freaking facility. It's not, and they have to like actually pay for their own daycare. What I looked up is correct. It might be. I may have got it mixed up with another team. But I'm just saying, like, these little quality of life things, like, matter in your own workplace. You know, obviously, these are millionaires, but it's going to matter to them as well. And another thing is, the thing I concerns me about lists like this, there's going to be some stingy owner, and there are, who's just going to be like, well, you know, we can't please everybody. You're just going to complain. But I think they should worry about that. Any owner who reads this shit and drags their heels, because that could be their own undoing. They could have star players leave. They could have, you know, players not want to come back if they consistently score bad. Like, it was really noteworthy last year when they did the NFLPA how, like, Arizona was last in everything. And it's going to make people less behooved to go sign there.
Question for
I got you.
everybody.
Kind of like the Coyotes.
What's up?
I don't know if this is a big deal. Maybe I'm just thinking about this specifically, but just something to toss out in the room right now. I'm going to list off the scores for team travel for everybody except the Dolphins because the Dolphins got A. But team travel for the Commanders was an F. Team travel for the Titans was an F. Travel for the Kansas City Chiefs was a D. Team travel for the New England Patriots was a D. Even teams like the Dallas Cowboys, who got a very good score, fourth in the league, C- for team travel, and so did the San Francisco 49ers, a C on team travel. Does that mean anything? Like, what could be done differently? Like, I don't know.
Get them a private jet, I guess. Spend some more money on your players, but it shouldn't matter because the top teams when it comes to grade are teams that are notoriously known for fucking up in the playoffs. So it's like, I treat you well and you can't even get me to a Super Bowl. Like, what the fuck is the point? The teams that are at the bottom of the list are teams that have been successful, except for the Chargers, who just suck at everything.
That's the Commanders.
I look at and the Commanders. They're on a whole nother level of ass. Like, when I look at the Chargers specifically, I look at the weight room, I look at the training staff, and I'm like, you got low grades on that for the Chargers. That's a problem because we've looked at the Chargers the last couple of years, and the reason why the Chargers have not been the team that they should be is because of countless injuries and mismanagement with players. And it's just, and it comes, and these grades show for them specifically. When I look at the Kansas City Chiefs and you see that they have like the worst diet and some of the worst training staffs, I don't know if I agree with that fully because in the Super Bowl last year, Patrick Mahomes messes up his foot, comes back out, got the little tranquilizer shot, and wins the Super Bowl. Comes back the next season and there's no problem. Maybe the diet should change a little bit because if you look at Patrick Mahomes, he puts on a few pounds every season. Travis Kelce has clearly gotten bigger and slower over the past few seasons. They have to do something to switch that because as these players get older, you don't want to have a situation where your top players are always in and out of the lineup. Maybe that might be a reason why Tyreek Hill left. Maybe the training staff and the treatment of families, maybe that's very important to him specifically, that he wanted to go to the Miami Dolphins and be a career loser.
No,
Well, bro has 7 kids. But,
yeah, somebody has to, you know.
I think I pushed back on. Oh, you go, Mims.
Regarding travel, right? Some of this is truly just organizational excellence and lack thereof. Like when you say travel, it's such a loaded statement. You're talking about schedules, you're talking about mode of transportation, you're talking about transferring resources, like what is available. Do I have a full mobile training room available? Who, a part of my home staff, of my training staff, comes with me on travel? What's the meal schedules like for the travel?
Players paying for the tickets on the flights.
You know, so there are all these factors with travel. And so I look at some of these other notes on just organizationally, how do you execute? Because it isn't isolated, right? Like, I'm a Steelers fan. We don't play games in London. We don't play games in Germany. So when you talk about travel, I wonder how do the Jacksonville Jaguars think about their travel schedule, which is much different than a team like the Steelers who played most of our games in the Eastern time zone. It's an extremely varied experience team to team
Mm-hmm.
about what travel means.
Like
I'm
you got to
curious.
ask what are the criteria for what means about good travel, that what they're putting up as the definition of good travel, because we don't know what criteria it is with.
I just want to also say shout out to the Detroit Lions for getting an A+ on head coach. It shows that what Dan Campbell has been able to do, despite us kind of running him through the ground like 10 minutes ago,
I didn't.
he
I
has
didn't.
been
I'm not.
able
He's listening.
to he has been able to really polish the Lions and bringing them to a standard that they have sorely missed out on in the last 30 years. And I believe if he can continue to keep, like, the fact that they was able to keep their coaching staff together this season is a very good thing, because I remember, like, Rich isn't here right now, but I remember we spoke about this and we have a little wager here that I believe that Detroit's going to win their division next year. He believes that the Green Bay Packers are going to win the division next year, and that's mainly because of the fact that he didn't believe that they were going to be able to get back their offensive coordinator. They were able to do so, so that puts them in a spot where they can build to next season, add to their defense, because Dan Campbell is more of a defensive oriented coach. So you could add to that defense and really put together a package to make this team a Super Bowl contender. And they were probably like 5 minutes away from being that if it wasn't for a couple of small mistakes. They would have been in the Super Bowl, and they could have easily beat the Chiefs because they beat them in week 1. So they knew that they
But
could
not
beat.
easily. But they could have beat the Chiefs,
Yeah,
but
but they
not
believe
easily.
they
They could
believed
have.
in themselves. They believed in themselves more than anybody else did. And if you can continue to build to that, then there's no real rhyme or reason why we can't see a possibility of Detroit going to their first Super Bowl in franchise history.
That'd be amazing. But I gotta say too, going to somebody is like, no, that'd be amazing. I agree with you. The A+ for the coaching is something. Well, this is not something that's been around forever. These NFLPA report cards. I
Been
think this
around
is
for 2 seasons.
2 seasons. So I'm curious to actually see, just going back to the original topic, 32nd, the worst, the Commanders, right? Kind of like a lot of shit that they have going through with their previous owner into
Yeah,
this new ownership group. But I'm curious
Mhm.
to see next year's report. Let's give it actually maybe
Maybe
two
2 years.
reports, 2 years from
yeah,
now.
like
How
two
much are
years,
they
3
gonna?
years.
How much? How are they gonna improve with a new ownership group in these rankings by their players internally? And that might be a
Mm-hmm.
good test of how the ownership group has improved, or heaven forbid, got worse. But that'd be really hard to do with the Commanders.
There's so much changing. Again, we've seen tremendous coaching turnover in the league. That's
Mm-hmm.
bonkers. Team travel, the season is longer than ever before with more games abroad. That's wild. Ownership styles have no consistency. That's bonkers. And then there's an infrastructure change. Like, so many new teams are less than 5 years in their new stadium, or they're building out new ones right now. So I'm not even sure how much credence I want to use in any of these reports until I can look at the league and be like, yeah, no, the league has been the same, at least functionally, for like 3 or 4 years. And these are all coming from players as the league continues to like stay the same age.
I
You
think
have
though,
all of these new NIL athletes coming from super facilities in college. Like,
Oh
if I
shit.
have to go from a brand new, it doesn't even have to be top. Like, the freaking University of South Carolina facilities are one of the best in the countries, and they're not even that nice.
Now you make a good point with that, because I was gonna bring up that when it came to like the locker rooms and the training facilities and the weight rooms.
You
I
go from
feel like a lot of
LSU to
that,
the Patriots locker room, you're gonna be like, what the
yeah.
fuck is this?
Like
I
I
mean,
think it, I
yeah,
think
look
it
at
comes
LSU's
down
locker
to the
room.
fact. Yeah, I think it comes down to the fact that like a lot of these teams are in stadiums that have not been brung up to the par of newer stadiums, and they're probably not going to do so for the next 5 to 10 years, depending on how the money situation is looking. So you're going to have a situation where the Kansas City Chiefs and the Steelers and Patriots have lower quality locker rooms and lower quality weight rooms because their stadiums have been around for the last 20, 30 years without needing any real improvement or upgrades. For example, like the Cowboys just did their stadium about 10 years ago, And theirs is pretty much up to par. Miami's is wild up to par. The Vikings is wild up to par. These are brand new stadiums, so they should be at the top of these lists. But is this going to translate to winning? And that should be the main substance for these report cards. It should be, are these going to translate to W's?
Should it
And for the
be?
Dolphins
I
and the
don't think it should
Vikings,
be.
it has not, in my opinion.
I don't think they need to translate to winning. This is about how your employees feel. And the Chiefs won a Super Bowl, and their employees like this workplace environment sucks. Like this is like a pulse check on your workplace environment, and your
But
champions are
that's what
like
I'm
this shit
saying.
sucks.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, how much of that comes down to the fact that these teams really look at winning first before the treatment of your employees. I
None
understand
of
that
them.
we are
None
in
of
a
them.
situation where there's a PC culture and people will speak out, especially if they feel a certain way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not denying that people shouldn't do that. But if it does not affect winning, how many of these teams are going to stop what they're doing to switch it all up? Like, do you really think the Steelers, who have been the Steelers for the last 10 to 15 years, have only missed the playoffs a handful of times? Do you really think they're about to switch everything just to appease some pencil pushers and some calculator tappers?
This is just from the outside, but I assume it's more about the financial benefit than just per se winning, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's the feeling that you're putting up, LBJ, and to an extent, Mibs, because it feels like about the treatment of the players and everyone in the facilities more than it is about winning these report cards. If we're saying it's about the workplace and how good it is, how bad it is, where they lie in terms of workplace quality, than it is about winning.
I have a theory though, since this is like what the Honorable alluded to, being the second year to do this, once they keep on doing these, let's just say for a decade, this is going to have real tangible effects on what teams players sign for. They will be looking at this a lot more. They will be a lot more privy to the workplace culture in different organizations, and they might be warded off from certain places that we'd be surprised it would be, and more enticed by places that we wouldn't expect. Not
Based
completely
on
though.
what?
Not completely, just based on the whole like overarching criteria. Like for example, the number one is the Dolphins. Like that's not that hard like of a sign up for anybody. First of all, it's like location, but think about where they rank in all these criteria. And they're already like a playoff threat.
Perennially, they're
Unless
a
you're
playoff threat. It's
unless you're
that
top 10 in your position, you don't get a real choice.
No, I get what you're trying to say. It's not going to move the needle of like
Like
Commanders
the
go from
owners
like
aren't going to need to worry about changing because it's the risk isn't that high. I think mainly it's for
Yeah,
public
I feel like
consumption.
the owners grade shouldn't even matter, bro. Because if you really want to be real, in any successful business, in any top ran business, you shouldn't even know what your owner looks like unless you Google them.
All right, that's crazy. But like that's crazy. But like Pat, can you just tell me what you mean? Because the NFL Players Union is one of the most sorry unions in the country. And if you are within like the bell curve of NFL players, you do not have a lot of control over where you go.
That's
So
true.
I'm trying to figure out what you mean by this is going to affect decisions, because my understanding is that there aren't that many decisions to be made.
Well, if you're just an outright free agent, it can affect decisions. Like obviously, there's franchise tags and stuff like that, and then they allow sometimes like a player to seek a trade or whatever, and it's not as cut and dry as say like unrestricted free agency in the NBA. But like for like certain free agents, this I think will have an impact. You know, and I don't think it's going to really show as much as like of course last year it didn't really show, or even this year. But I'm saying like 5, 10 years from now, if they keep on doing this, it's going to be a thing. It's going to actually have an impact, and I think more of an impact too. It's still going to. I still think it's going to be on ownership because like this is like a way to really hold them accountable from their players' perspectives. Now I think there's some owners like Cap said that just don't give a fuck. They're just gonna be like, you're just a cog in the football machine. You're gonna be replaceable no matter what. And for them, you know, all this is useless. For a lot of genuine owners that actually give a shit about improving the quality of product, they might be like, yeah, you know what, our cafeterias do suck. Uh, you know, that's not that big of an ask for a billionaire. I can change that. You know, and little things like that will make your workers happier and maybe make them produce better
To
football.
Cap's point, when he said you shouldn't even know what your owner looks like, unless your owner is also the president and GM of your team, you kind of know what he looks like every day. So I think going with that and this report card for the Cowboys, I'm honestly I'm indifferent because they're 12th overall in all these grades. It's like a good sign, like the whole treatment of families thing. Like, of course that's cool, but like, I don't know. I just go back to what Cap said. No matter how these grades go, sometimes it's just like the players feel great at times. But if you have an owner who's like Jerry Jones, who is not only worried about the branding, I mean, it's worth so much money, billions, 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 right? We all know that. But he's also worried about the day-to-day and the draft and free agency. At this point, he's never going to give the whole full title role to Stephen Jones until he dies. It's just the truth. And it's sad to say, but yeah, as a Cowboys fan, there's just been so much rinse and repeat since the 96 Super Bowl.
And he's a billionaire, so he's gonna
And
live
he's a
forever.
billion. Like, yeah, it's just, and he's dealing with the paternity lawsuit. Like, he's got so much on his freaking plate. It's unbelievable. All I'm going to say about this report card, it's cool that the NFLPA has done this, and now it's the second season, but I feel like it won't have ramifications until, like Pat said, like a decade goes by. I don't know. I just feel like right now it's just a cool thing to look at.
Yeah, I don't think it'll matter unless we actually look at those failing grade areas and get like an actual Hard Knocks look at them and see like what that baseline for an F is.
Get the Commanders on Hard Knocks right
Like,
now.
oh, it's
please.
just is it like, oh, they shouldn't even exist anymore, or is it, oh yeah, they're not that good at this? How bad is it? You know, like what's the difference from the Dolphins to the worst team, and then what's the difference from like the 10th overall team to the 20th? Will it make that much a difference to free agents? Like, how close is it?
You know, you go on Hard Knocks, Washington Commanders for like locker room, which they got 32nd with F minus. It's like dirt floors, wooden benches.
I mean, to help your point a little bit, the New York Jets had a Hard Knocks, and they were what, ranked 21st altogether. You look at it like that, like we got to see what the difference in between one of the best franchises versus one of the lesser mediocre, or more, yeah, I guess we'll call them mediocre franchises. The Jets have kind of tried to figure it out, but like they just really just put a band-aid over a stab wound. And we've seen it firsthand this season. So it's like I would definitely be down to see the Commanders or Steelers, maybe even the Bengals. Because the Bengals had a lower grade on a lot of things. They had a low grade on food cafeteria. They had a low grade on treatment of families. They had a low grade on nutrition. Oh, but the Jets, they had one of the worst training staffs. I see that. So like they had a low grade on a lot of these though. But the Cincinnati Bengals have been a team that we've known them to be a standard of mediocrity, but they've kind of risen into a prominence through Joe Burrow's rise and success. So you could definitely look into that, and probably we could figure out what is going on in these situations. Like, why are these teams that are winning games that have all this talent, why are they not switching it up to make sure that their treatment of these players, the treatment of their employees is not higher so that they can have more success?
It sucks that the Lions were 13, right below the Cowboys.
Yeah, Pat, maybe give a little outro here for this segment.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been the NFL segment of Let's Get Cracking, and we had distinct honor and privilege of having Frito, aka Richard Gangerson, Mibs, the Honorable Cap No Cap, Dan, and Alec, and myself, of course, give it to you. And we look forward to our next one. Thank you.